We are joined this morning by Maria Elena Vignoli. She's the senior counsel at the International Justice Program of Human Rights Watch, a longtime friend and colleague at Human Rights Watch. A little bit of disclosure here, friends. I used to work with Maria Elena and with Human Rights Watch until about 6 months ago. So know that. But Maria Elena, thank you for agreeing to come on the show.
Thank you so much, Carlos. It's such a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
How do you see this in relation to the campaign or the movement for a more robust system of international justice? And as we know, a lot of situations are facing, different or the similar kind of predicament as the Philippines. But at a time when the International Criminal Court is pretty much under assault, led by
Yes.
the United States, and there seems to be a concerted effort to try to discredit it, to undermine its mandate. And we've said this before when we were briefing people in Human Rights Watch that what's happened in the Philippines kind of provides a breath of fresh air in terms of the possibility of accountability. So in many ways, in some ways, this case is being watched by a lot of other situations, a lot of
Yes.
other advocates, and can you explore that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That's an actual excellent point, an excellent question. Because yeah, as you said, I mean, this case has reverberations that go way beyond the Philippines. Of course, it's, at its core, it's a landmark move towards accountability for the countless victims of the drug war in the Philippines. But it is incredibly important as we move beyond the Philippines. This is the first case that is brought before the ICC in a situation in the Asia Pacific region. So there's also like a regional element to it. It's the first case within that region that is brought. It makes it to this step. As we know, before Duterte was arrested in March 2025. In November 2024, the ICC prosecutor requested an arrest warrant for the Commander General of the junta in Myanmar, but there hasn't been any public movement on that case as to yet. So really, the case against Rodrigo Duterte is the furthest forward in terms of cases in the region, and a first one in that. So an incredibly important um, development at a regional level. And then broadening it up even more, this is a much needed development for international justice more broadly, and for the ICC in particular. As you said, we are at a moment where the court is under assault, truly, and not only from the United States. I mean, of course, you mentioned the United States first and foremost. We've seen in February of last year, US President Donald Trump issuing an executive order which authorized sweeping sanctions on ICC officials as well as those supporting its work. And to date, we find ourselves in the unprecedented situation in which the court's prosecutor, two deputies, eight judges, a UN special rapporteur, as well as
Hmm.
three leading human rights organizations, Palestinian human rights organizations, have been sanctioned through this executive order. And this is a full front assault not only on the court, but on international justice and the global rule of law more broadly. So there's that aspect, but it's not the only one. At the same time, the court is under attack from others who are other detractors who fear its reach. I mean, just in December, a court in Russia convicted in absentia the ICC prosecutor and eight judges to sentence like prison sentences. And this was done in retaliation for the issuance of the arrest warrant
Hmm.
against Russian President Vladimir Putin. And this came on top of two very serious cyber attacks that the court suffered in 2023 and 2025. So as you can see, that the attacks sort of like are coming from all over the place. And at the same time, the court also has some serious internal challenges. There's currently an ongoing misconduct investigation against the prosecutor who took a leave of absence in May of last year. So things are not perfect inside the court as well. So seeing that despite all of this internal and external turmoil, the court continues to work. It
Yeah.
truly is, like, in my view, really an affirmation of its importance as a critical court of last resort for victims that have, like, victims in the Philippines who haven't seen
Yeah.
any justice yet. And so
Yeah.
they're really looking at the ICC as that place, the place where they can get at least some measure of justice. And interestingly enough, I mean, Duterte was sort of like the Duterte being arrested and surrendered to the court last year was sort of like the first of a number of positive developments that have really, in my view, emphasized the importance of the court across a number of situations. Because we had in March his arrest and surrender to the court. We had two landmark judgments in the situation of Sudan, the situation of the Central African Republic. These were two judgments that were like firsts in their in their respective situations. And then we had at the end of last year the transfer to the court of a Libyan suspect, again the first individual to be brought before the court for crimes committed in the situation of Libya. So to me, this is really it offers a counterbalance to the very, very serious challenges that the court is facing, and highlights the importance of this institution and why, we all collectively in different ways are doing our everything we can to try and protect it, while also trying to strengthen it and address its challenges.
Excellent points. Finally, Maria Elena, I mean, you mentioned something about the Philippines' domestic accountability and all of that. And
Yeah.
in fact, in your statement today, you said you threw a challenge to the current administration of Ferdinand Marcos Jr. The whole thing about Philippines needing to re-ratify the Rome Statute and go back to the ICC. That's a call by many advocates here in the Philippines, and a very important call, particularly coming from the victims. Can you tell us quickly before we end this, what's the process in doing that? And if the Philippines decides to go back to the ICC, is that something unprecedented, or there had been cases before that had similar to that? And really, how does this, in the final analysis, how does this, affect the Philippines, or how would this influence the search for or the campaign for domestic accountability mechanisms in the Philippines?
Yeah. Again, excellent question. I'm gonna start with, has this ever happened before? No. No, it hasn't happened before, and it would be a great first, of a country leaving the court and then deciding to come back. So far, the only two countries that have fully left the court, meaning, they formally declared that they would leave the court. So they deposited their intention with the Secretary General of the United Nations, and then a year since that elapsed are the Philippines and Burundi. Right now, Hungary is in that process, in the sense that it completed the formal procedure domestically and then went to the Secretary General, notified the Secretary General, sorry, in June of last year. So it's technically still a member, but we are, the 1 year is sort of running out. And then we've had, over the last few months, some other countries that have indicated their intention to leave the court. The three Sahel country, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, and then Venezuela, but they haven't taken, as far as we know, any formal steps to actually move that forward. So going back to the Philippines, that would be again unprecedented, but an incredibly positive precedent. And what that would look like really depends on the domestic procedures. I'm afraid I'm not too familiar with the domestic procedures in the Philippines, but I assume it's something that would be initiated by the in this case the Marcos administration, but that it would have to go through Parliament,
Yeah,
and then it's the way in which it would have to basically re-ratify the Rome Statute, right? But it's
yeah,
done it before, so there's expertise there on how to make that happen. And when I say expertise, I don't only mean from a political perspective, from a legal perspective, but also, there's a very, very active, as you said, civil society movement within the Philippines that made it happen once. And so, we're very hopeful that, this will eventually happen again. And what is the meaning of the Philippines potentially rejoining the Rome Statute from an accountability perspective? I mean, being part of the Rome Statute system is basically you sort of enter this international justice family in which you are given as a country the sort of I don't want to say that the protection, but you're given the instruments to then domestically being able to investigate and prosecute serious crimes, without
hmm,
having to, eventually go to the ICC. Being part of the Rome Statute system is really a way for countries to make sure that their domestic legal framework, their domestic their institutional frameworks domestically are up to the task of
yeah,
investigating and prosecuting serious crimes. And we know that this is not the case right now in the Philippines, because the Philippines did challenge the courts, did request for the court's investigation to be deferred to national authorities, saying, see, we are doing this, but the ICC judges assess the situation, and their finding was no, this is not enough. So coming back to the Rome Statute would be an opportunity, would provide new impetus domestically to really strengthen the legal system, but also the institutions that are needed for this type of investigations and prosecutions, so that eventually you'll reach a place where, okay, it is, you won't need the ICC anymore.